Hello, my name is Kaman Reddy, and this is my second reconstruction of doing Advent of Code Day 3, um, Advent of Code for 2024, Day 3. You can see I've already actually succeeded at this. Um, I made a video just finished moments ago where I tried to do it in a different way than I did when I actually did it originally in bed on my Android tablet, namely not use regular expressions. And it turned out much messier and much buggier. So I'm going to do it over again, but I'm going to do it using regular expressions, more or less the same way. I don't have the code that I wrote on my tablet in front of me. I'm just doing it, redoing it. So the the thing is, we have a long string, and we have to pick out the mul um, open paren number, comma number, close parens as instructions, and then we have to actually evaluate those multiplications and sum up all of them. So in this sample program, sample data, they're going to have four of them. Notice we have some false positives. We have this mul but with square brackets. That's not a real one. We have this mul that starts with an open regular parentheses but closes with a closed square bracket, which is not a real one. Um, so we have to not be confused by those. Um, so I'm going to copy this to be my sample input. I'm going to start up a whole brand new Emacs, and I'm going to start up a whole brand new file. Uh, the A is because the other one is there. So I'm going to insert a CA 2024 3. And I'm going to put my sample that I just copied here. Oops, I thought I had copied it. That's better. And then I need the input. So you can see the much messier. So, um, as I said, the last time I did it, in the last video, which was way over an hour long and much, lots of time head scratching and debugging. I don't know if I'm going to actually publish that one. Um, loop with, no, actually we do know with start equals 0. So we're going to use the regular expression search built into Emacs Lisp, um, which is string match, and it'll tell us that it takes a regular expression, and the regular expression we want is mul, open paren. Then we want a group, which is going to keep the first number. So this is any number of digits. And we're going to end the group. Then we need a comma. And then we also need another, any number of digits. That's the end of the group. And then we need the closing paren of the whole thing. And that's going to be our regular expression. Um, so in non-Emacs regular expression syntax, you would use just one backslash here to you know, backslash open paren, starts a group. But backslash is the coding character inside of a string. So to get one backslash into the string, you have to actually type two backslashes. So this looks a tiny bit funny, but it's more or less the same. And then string match also takes an optional start. And that's why we have the start variable. Um, and we're just going to keep going while we've got some. For num1, num1, num2 equals loop for I from 1 to 2 collect. And match string is how you retrieve the values in groups. There's a regexp search for buffers, um, which is search forward regexp or search backwards regexp. And match string works for those too. In that case, you don't have to, you just say which match you want. Match 0 is the entire regular expression, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 go through to the groups. So we're going to collect the two groups that we want the values for. But those are string versions of the numbers. So we're going to say string to number. So that is going to get us to our two numbers. And then we're going to say sum times num1, num2. But the one thing we have to do is we have to update start. Set q start to pause. So that the next time through we go looking for the next one. Actually, we don't want pause. That will get the same one. We want match end of 0. Namely, so that'll get us the ending offset of, oh, and where's our match string? Here we have to, in the regex case, you don't have to tell it where it is because it's the buffer and it knows about it. But here you have to actually give the string again because what it's returning is just the index into the string for the string match. And so you have to give it it remembers the indices, but you have to give it the input string so you can get out the actual characters. So I think that should be it. We'll try it. Well, helps to have evaluated the buffer. I'm doing it backwards. No? Right, I left out the input string. So it's regexp string start. That's what. Oops. So I have one open, one close. I left out the open for this one. And 161 is in fact, sorry, right, this one part one. And then we want to, as I said, I did this in a much longer video, not using the regexp. One seven three seven three one zero nine seven. 173731097. Okay, so that gets us the same answer. So the all of the time in the previous video was because I you know wanted to do the second part, also not using regexp. Um, the first part wasn't too terrible, and I got it wrong and had to do some debugging. So we're going to say with valid ranges equal, and this is going to be a very similar loop as the outer loop. Namely, we're going to loop for with start equals 0, but and enabled equals 0. Um, oh, sorry, I should explain the second half part. Uh, there's these extra things, and in fact, there's this extra sample. Um, the don'ts turn off, enabling the multiplications, and the do's turn on. And obviously the UN here is ignored. The do just turns it on. So any multiplications that are between a don't and a do get ignored. And so you're doing the same things, but you're only doing part of them. This is my second sample. The template was designed for this particular case. And ranges. So we're going to collect the ranges between starts and enabled, between the when we start out enabled, the first don't will end the range, uh, and the next do will start a new enabled range, um, and the next don't or the end of the string will end that range. So we're going to collect these ranges for pause equals, and it's essentially the same for expression search, except that we're looking for the do's and don'ts. So this part is do, and this part is either nothing or n single quote t, and then we don't need to worry about all the rest. Except the closing parameter we do want. Okay, so we actually, I deleted too much. We need the closing of the group. This is the second one is starting an alternative. No, right. Stars, we don't need that. I was wrong. And we do need to update start while pause. Now, so this time our for if match string 0, sorry, not 0, 1. So if we have an alternative in here, which is either the empty string because in first the before the vertical bar, or the n single quote t after the vertical bar. So if that match string is equal to the empty string, that means we're turning on um, do else do. So what we have to do is we have to, unless already enabled, because we could get another one, set queue enabled to pause. This is where we found the do. And if we got a don't, we have to, if we're all enabled, push list of enabled pause onto ranges. That says we were enabled um, at some point in the past, including in the very beginning. And from there until this don't that we just saw at pause is valid, but then after that is not valid. And if we weren't enabled, we don't have to really do anything. Oh, actually, if we were enabled, we have to both do that and right, I don't have to do anything. When enabled, set queue enabled to nil, because now we're not enabled. And then finally at the end, when enabled, push list enabled length in, input string onto ranges, because we want to make sure that we record the fact that everything from here to the end is good. Then we need to return the list of ranges. So this is for part 2. So we need our optional part 2. We can say when part 2 and so now what we need to do is only when or null part 2. So we're doing part 1 and it's loop for min max in valid ranges. There is less than min pause max. Because I did that on the wrong clause. That's going to govern the sum clause. So we don't execute the sum clause unless this is true. So in part one, it's always true because not, part two will be null. And in part two, it'll only be true if we are in a position that's inside of a valid range. So let's try that. So for this one, they said it should be 48, and that didn't work. Okay, well, okay, so as I showed in the previous video, one thing you can do, you can invoke the debugger before invoking your function, and then just sort of step into it, debugging. So the very first, what, part two sample, is that not set correctly? It is set correctly. Oh, I never did the part two. So that got the wrong answer. But I called part two, which calls part one. Did I must have compiled it. So we can go on. So the first thing we're going to do, see if it's part two. This the code that we're seeing is the expansion of um, the loop macros. The whole thing about macros is that they allow you to rewrite code so you can have a nice compact description of what you want to do, and then it turns it into the actual, less compact and more nested uh, code that actually does it. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing the, inner guts of the loop. Uh, so every time I type D, it says continue on until you call to and create a new stack frame. And if I type C, I get continue until the next frame that's marked with an asterisk, which means break when you are exiting that frame into the debugger. So I can type C, and that'll tell us that we've gotten a position. I can evaluate substring input string pause to see that that's a do. Um, and match string returns the empty. So this is how we know. So if enabled is nil, but enabled should have been, it is. So we're not going to do anything because enabled is already there. And now we're going to update start match. Oh, 0, that's wrong. 0 is the entire expression, but we wanted only the match of this part, and that was the problem. Um, No, I thought that was the problem. Well, let's go do it again. Okay, so that's the beginning of the loop that's going to return us our ranges. So here, let's see if we can find a match to the regular expression. We did. And it was a do, so we're not going to do anything. Ah, somehow we're not finding the don't, which was in front of it. So, so search forward regexp. So there were don'ts there. So why did it not find the don't? So do, that's the problem. I said do open paren, but what I want is actually I want open paren, close paren after it. So I made my regular expression wrong. So this is, let's see if that works. So that in fact found the don't. So I can just capture this. So that found both of them in the right places. And go back to where I was in the code and put in the correct regular expression. See if that works better. It does indeed. So that was 93729253. 93729253. So yes, this was much faster. And even though I got the regular expression wrong, um, this video will be much shorter. The What I did this morning, I actually managed to get the regular expression right the first time. So it was really pretty quick. Thanks for your attention.